You are listening to the Keeping It Juicy podcast.
Your main squeeze in nutrition.
Don't forget to subscribe so you can join us every Tuesday for a brand new episode.
Also, don't forget to add us on Instagram and Facebook at Keeping It Juicy Podcast.
Hello, and welcome to episode 55.
Where weight loss is fake news. In case
Right.
you didn't know that. Just saying.
So we're going to be talking about a lot in this episode, but basically we're just going to touch on a lot of different things regarding the weight loss process and kind of like setting realistic expectations for yourself and kind of some of the things that go along with weight loss. And yeah, we'll get into it.
Yeah, especially with the new year coming up, you need to figure out what's actually true and what's actually not.
Yeah, because there's going to be a lot of just garbage being thrown at you. And we'll talk more on New Year's resolutions in a later episode. But we're just talking about the whole concept today.
Mm-hmm.
But before we get into that, we are going to go into our new nutrition in the news. So this article was titled, Researchers Discover Brain Circuit Linked to Food Impulsivity. And basically, what this article talks about is the underlying physiology in your brain that is regulating your capacity to say no, which is basically impulsive eating. So using a rat model, researchers focused on a subset of brain cells that produce a type of transmitter in the hypothalamus called melanin concentrating hormone, also known as MCH. While previous research has shown that elevating MCH levels in the brain can increase food intake, this study was the first to show that MCH also plays a role in impulsive behavior. So results indicated that MCH doesn't affect how much the animals liked the food or how hard they were willing to work to get the food. Rather, it worked on the animals' inhibitory control or their ability to stop themselves from trying to get the food. So this can be kind of compared to if you eat something quote unquote bad, but then think after like, oh my gosh, it really wasn't as good as I thought, but you still ate it all. Why couldn't you stop yourself? Mm-hmm. It's that being able to say no and having that conversation like with yourself and being able to stop. So activating this specific pathway of MCH neurons increased impulsive behavior without affecting normal eating or caloric need or the motivation to consume delicious foods. Understanding this circuit, which selectively affects food impulsivity, exists and opens the door to possibly one day being able to develop therapeutics for overeating that can help people stick to a diet pattern and helping get a normal appetite.
Although, when you brought up this article, it actually reminded me of one of my coworkers. I'm not going to say who, but she is actually having issues with overeating, and the doctor prescribed her something to help prevent her from overeating, and she swears by it. And like, if she does not take that medication, then she does get that impulse to eat. Which I forgot the name of the medication, but I do not see that too often. I'm not sure about you.
Yeah. I mean, working with a lot of weight loss clients, impulsive eating is a really big deal. But the approach that I've always taken is more of like, cognitive behavioral therapy, like asking, okay, what's your trigger? How is this habit happening? Right. How can we rewire that habit? So this is a different perspective that it actually could be, coming from this MCH hormone and becoming stimulated for whatever reason. And it's interesting that it worked on the inhibitory controls versus, I mean, this is just an animal model, but versus how the taste of food was perceived,
Right.
So just a different take on it.
So yeah, let us know your thoughts and feelings. And with that being said, let's go ahead and dive into the bulk of the episode. So with new year comes new realities. So that being said, let's get real about weight loss that is actually appropriate and sustainable, and what in the hell is up with water weight. So first off, let's talk about safe weight loss. So, according to the CDC, safe weight loss is about 1 to 2 pounds per week, which I'm sure a lot of you guys are already familiar with. Modest weight loss is considered about 5 to 10% of your body weight and can actually improve health outcomes. And I don't mean just for the average population, I mean for any population, for diabetics, etc. An example would probably be like a 200-pound man losing about 10 pounds. So that would be 10% and weighing 190 pounds. That seems fine and dandy, right? Not necessarily. Although these recommendations are generally considered safe and backed by numerous studies, context is very, very important too. The general rule of thumb figures actually lack the actual context. So, for example, these statements do not take into account muscle mass, which is huge when it comes to weight loss. So, say we have a 120-pound woman with a 35% body fat, and she loses about 5% of her body weight, taking her to about 114 pounds. But let's also assume that this woman was not exercising and reduced her calories to create a deficit and actually ended up losing more lean mass than actual body fat. So in this scenario, although she lost the appropriate amount of weight, her body composition decreased and not in a favorable way. Unfortunately, this scenario occurs very often in women, and this is where the term skinny fat comes from. So it's also important to recognize that those with more weight to lose will lose more in the first few weeks, likely over the recommended 2 pounds that we talked about. So depending on the amount of the caloric deficit, different weight loss rates can be achieved. So improved body composition should always be the goal. Typically, this means decreasing that body fat and increasing that lean mass muscle, which I mean, I guess some women would call that toned, which I hate that word.
Yeah, toned is a weird word, but this increasing lean mass and decreasing body fat is probably the best definition for getting toned.
But
Um,
I don't want to gain muscle.
yeah.
What, Justin
So,
Bieber, in the words of Justin Bieber, what do you mean?
yeah. So we are going to get into, appropriately setting goals and kind of how you can achieve that improved body composition and what is actually realistic. So this gets tricky because if you are literally doing everything right, and we're talking sleeps, reps in the gym, the intensity, the weight you're using, doing progressive overload, what food you're eating, how much protein you're having, the carbs, your meal timing, calories in, calories out, stress reduction, cardio.
Are you still with us?
Do you get the picture? There's a lot that goes into, this whole lifestyle thing. So even if you're doing all of that right, the stars may align and you can expect to see muscle growth at the following rates. So this, we're talking natural, no supplements, no weird stuff, just natural, doing
No
all the
weird
things that
stuff, she said.
no weird stuff here. An average natural man can expect to gain anywhere from 0.25 to half a pound of muscle per week, or about 1 to 2 pounds of muscle growth per month. The average natural woman can gain anywhere from 0.12 to 0.25 pounds of muscle per week, or about half a pound to a pound per month. Um, that's not very fast,
Nope. Slow
Most
and steady wins the race.
slow and steady. And again, that's when you're doing everything we mentioned above before, you're doing all of that correctly. If you're kind of, not lifting as heavy as you can, not getting your meal timings right, you're skipping meals for 8 hours, you're not getting good sleep, you're going to be on the lower end of that range. You'll
Hmm.
only really get to the higher end of that range when you're, truly putting in the effort to do that. So muscle growth happens very slow. You will not just stumble upon muscle growth. People dedicate their lives to this. Trust me, you will not get too big on accident. Again, people dedicate their entire lives to this. It's not just going to magically fall in your lap and happen for you. There's a lot of different things that go into it. Um, a very extreme general rule of thumb that people throw around is if you're gaining more than 4 pounds per month while trying to build muscle, you are more than likely putting on more fat than muscle. Again, this requires some context. If you've got a big bodybuilder guy compared to a small petite woman, those 4 pounds look very different on both of them. These general rules of thumbs, like the one mentioned before, 1 to 2 pounds of weight loss per week, require context. Um, but that's just a general rule of thumb. If you're trying to build muscle, but you're gaining more than 4 pounds per month, you might be gaining more fat than muscle. A lot of people, unfortunately, underestimate building muscle. It is really important to have realistic expectations when it comes to this. It is not enough to just focus on the number on the scale. It's actually really hard when you're trying to build muscle to just look at the
Mhm.
number on the scale. You really need to pay attention to how much strength you're gaining and how you actually feel. How quickly
Mhm.
are you recovering? How do your muscles feel? Are you able to move up in weights? All these different things. Measurements are also really valuable when you're trying to build muscle. We're going to get into this into just a second, but building muscle and losing fat, your measurements are going to change even if the number on the scale stays exactly the same.
So with that being said, let's dive into the next topic. So that is all about recomposition, losing fat and building muscle at the same time. Is this possible? Yes, but it's tricky and it's not happening like you expect it to happen. It takes patience and it takes adaptation. I mean, essentially, these two are kind of the opposites if you think about it. Muscle building requires a caloric surplus, while decreasing fat requires a caloric deficit. So, what do you do? So, the body is constantly going back and forth between breaking down and building up. So, anabolism and catabolism. So, is it possible? Absolutely. But resistance training and an appropriate diet is required. So this will look different on everyone. Experiment yourself or seek out the help of a actual professional in this field. And key factors to consider and include is eating enough protein to maintain and build muscle, as well as spacing it out throughout the day equally. Because keep in mind, you can't gain more, you can't absorb more than 30 grams of protein at one time. And eating balanced meals to ensure satiety, eating enough carbs to fuel your workouts to be able to actually lift enough weights to trigger that muscle growth. Yes, you do need carbs. Being strategic with workouts to build muscle. And lastly, finding the appropriate calories to not promote fat gain.
Right. There are a lot of factors that need to be considered when trying to build muscle and burn fat at the same time. It is tricky and it does require a lot of trial and error, whether you have a dietitian helping you or you're just trying it on your own. But I do want to talk a little bit about a big mistake that I made for many years and just, don't make the same mistake. So, when you're trying to build muscle, it's so easy to be way too focused on protein because it's literally just like thrown at your face all the time. Protein, 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 protein. You have to eat a lot of protein. And where it gets tricky is like if you have a set amount of calories that you're shooting for, like your target range, and you have a certain ratio of protein that you're shooting to eat, let's say it's something insanely high, like you're trying to eat 50% of your calories from protein, like that's off the charts, but that only leaves 50% for your carbs and your fat. Let's just say you split that right down the middle and eat 25% carbs, 25% fats. That's a very low carb, that's low carb. You're not going to have enough carbs to actually fuel your workouts to lift enough weight to make strength gains. So your protein hogging up all your calories is inhibiting you from getting enough carbs. You're better off increasing your carbs to lift more weight to then reduce that protein to then repair the muscle. So just a little mistake I made for many years, just going ham with the protein. It's not necessary. We're not going to make any recommendations, but just something to think about that you don't need to be eating like insane
200
amount.
grams of protein a
And
day.
Yeah, and some people do that. Um, so now we're gonna shift gears a little bit and move on to water weight during weight loss. So many diets like to cut out carbs because it almost guarantees weight loss. So as we already kind of alluded to, weight loss does not mean fat loss, and weight loss does not mean improved body composition either. When carbs are removed or reduced from the diet, the body must then tap into its stored carbs for energy. This is your glycogen stores in your liver or muscle. Once those carbs are used up and not replaced through the diet because you're not eating them, all the water that was once used to store those carbs doesn't get replaced either. So obviously, your weight is just going to come down from reduced water. Um, in some ways, this is really motivating to someone who just like signed up for a brand new diet, but it's usually also followed by disappointment because that weight loss rate is not linear. You can't keep up that rate of weight loss. Or extreme carb restriction, which follows by water loss, can have extremely negative effects, including electrolyte imbalance. Yes, I'm talking to you, ketoers. There's actually a me there's actually a whole market of electrolyte beverages for those doing keto because it's a problem.
That's so stupid. Might as well like sell Gatorade and slap keto on it.
It's, yeah, pretty much. But there's a whole market for it. These are the electrolytes you need if you're keto. Like, it's just electrolytes.
Oh God. Anyways, so from that, let's move on to the next topic. So there's the popular social media phenomenon called the whoosh effect.
Whoosh. We will
Whoosh.
insert a picture right here if you're watching the YouTube video.
So if you're not familiar with the whoosh effect, well, again, like we said, insert the picture. So the first step is a fully loaded fat cell. The second step is some fat is gone. The cell starts collapsing, waiting for more fat. And then the third step is more fat gone, more water, still waiting for more fat. It's still staying open. It knows it's going to get some fat. And then fourth step is no fat, lots of water. And then the last step is, I guess there's no more fat
It
going.
deflates or something.
Yeah, it just deflates. And then all of a sudden, whoosh, it's all gone.
Apparently,
Wait for the whoosh. That
yeah,
sounds
some of these graphics are very you know,
whoosh,
they're,
there it is.
they're kind of like motivational by like they're just saying like, oh, if you're not losing weight, like don't worry, you will because your fat cells are just filled with water. You got to wait for the whoosh.
Uh,
Odd.
that's
It's so
that
odd.
sound that sounds like I don't know. Mm,
People just make stuff up.
that sounds like like something that was sold in the 90s by like Michael Jordan for
Oh
all.
my gosh, right?
So if you're on any commercial diet, keto, intermittent fasting Facebook group, you have probably seen this. It is the most popular with keto groups, but it can be applied to any low carb or carb controlled diet. So before that, just a little recap on ketosis. The purpose of the diet is to induce ketosis in the body. Normally, the body runs on fuel from carbohydrates in the form of glucose and other sugars. When the body is in ketosis, it runs on fat. That's why it's recommended that people eat a high fat diet, usually from a variety of sources on this diet, not just the butter. They need to eat a low enough amount of carbohydrates to keep the body running on fat and a high enough amount of fat to fuel it. So, this is why the whoosh effect isn't real. Whoosh. So, essentially, those who support the whoosh effect concept are describing two processes. First, water weight loss, then second, fat loss.
So, ketosis causes the body to break down fat cells for energy. The components include ketones, heat, water, and carbon dioxide. And the rate at which your body breaks down these fat cells depends on how much energy your body uses in a day. Some people call that your metabolic rate. This is the same
Mhm.
as calories in, calories out method that's used in more traditional diets that include carbohydrate.
Mhm.
The second effect of that is water retention. So here's the thing. Your kidneys regulate the amount of water in your body, and
Mhm.
your body produces this great little hormone called ADH, which is antidiuretic hormone. Depending on your hydration status, ADH will either increase or decrease the amount of water expelled or retained. So how like the whoosh just doesn't make sense. Like your body manages how much water it holds on to. So
But you gotta wait for the whoosh. It's so catchy.
it's odd. So odd.
I mean, let us know if you don't agree, but we think it's odd.
Yeah,
And
we think it's someone just made this up.
whoosh, there it is. So with that being said, let's go into the next topic that kind of bounces off what we talk about is weight fluctuations. So if you are actively trying to improve your body composition and you're using the scale as a tool to help keep track of your progress, keep the following factors in mind. First off, weight fluctuations are normal. If your weight doesn't fluctuate, you would probably be dead. Kidding, kidding, but but kind of
Sadly.
not. Yeah. So the number one thing that will influence your weight is your food intake. If you eat 4 ounces of chicken, you're gonna weigh 4 ounces more. I mean, it's just gravity. I don't
Math.
know. Yeah,
Science.
math. Yeah. Okay, we need to keep that sarcasm down. So we are constantly inputting and excreting waste products through urine, feces, and respiration, perspiration, etc. All the fun bodily fluids, even the ones that we didn't mention here. Yes, I said it. Keep your mind out the gutter. So, with that being said, let's also remember sodium. So, if you don't know, then you know now. Sodium and water, they like to follow each other. So that's why high blood pressure happens. It's due to increased blood volume from water retention. Just FYI. So high sodium meals or chronic overconsumption of sodium can also skew the scale. Like one day you could be eating out and eating all those McDonald's French fries and with all that salt, and the next day you eating everything from home, you're gonna see an obvious weight difference.
Mhm,
That's just a given.
mhm.
And then the next thing to keep in mind is carbohydrate. It literally has the word hydrate in it. Carb, oh, hydrate. I mean,
So,
if you want to say it like that.
mhm.
But so for every gram of carbohydrate you consume, it will draw with it about 3 to 4 grams of water. So also keep in mind high carbohydrate foods tend to be high sodium foods as well. So you're basically getting hit twice.
So another factor that can affect how your body has weight fluctuations is exercise. So exercise can cause you to sweat and lose water weight. Exercise experts estimate that the average person loses approximately 25 to 45 ounces of fluid per hour during exercise, especially during intense cardiovascular activity. But of course, that number can vary greatly based on weather conditions and other factors like what you're wearing, how much skin is exposed, all that kind of stuff. But the thing is, fluids lost from sweat shouldn't actually make a difference on the scale. And that's because fluids lost during exercise should be replaced. So you should be rehydrating. If you notice that you lose weight consistently over exercise, you might want to come up with a better hydration plan for your exercise. Um, but other forms of exercise can cause daily weight fluctuations as well. A big one is if you lift weights. Any form of strength training can cause your muscles to retain water. If you exercise, you know this as transient hypertrophy, also known as the pump. So, you know,
Spoken like a true bro.
your, the reason your muscles look pumped is because of water. It's called transient hypertrophy because it will go away.
Mhm.
Um, you know, so why does this actually happen? So when you participate in strength training, you create these tiny little micro tears in your muscles, and your muscles actually store and use water to repair that damage. When you create those micro tears, your muscles become larger and stronger, also known as you're getting swole.
Hashtag swole method.
Pretty much.
So drink that water and you'll
Yeah.
get
So
those nice Insta pictures.
I will say, on days that I do like a super heavy leg day, I definitely expect myself to be heavier the next day. But that's
Mhm.
also because a day before a heavy leg day, I'll eat more carbs too. Then I do a heavy leg day, so I should be retaining more water, so I should be heavier the next day. So these are just a lot of things to keep in mind.
Right. And another thing to notice is that sometimes you can feel yourself like be dehydrated before a workout because you more than likely, I mean, I know with myself, my workouts are shitty if I don't have enough water. If I have enough water, I have like enough of that pump to
Mhm.
get my workouts going and completed. And
And
yeah.
we share that because it really is trial and error when it comes
Hmm.
to your individual, how you respond to things. I know some people who don't drink a sip of water during their workout at all and they're fine. Me, I would struggle. Like, that thought makes me want to cry. Like, it's just not for me.
Like it's like you have to walk that mile to the water fountain, like
Yeah.
water.
Yeah. Yeah. So, if you are choosing to embark on a weight loss journey or build some muscle this new year, keep all of these things in mind when you weigh yourself, that it's going
Hmm.
to fluctuate. It's going to be
Hmm.
all over the place sometimes, but you really just need to, as cliche as it sounds, trust the process, be honest with yourself. Are you cheating on, whatever diet plan tactic you're choosing to use? If you're cheating on it and you're not seeing anything, need I say more? Um,
I think you do need to say more.
you catch my drift. So yeah, I hope this helped clear some things up if
Hmm.
you are choosing to go down this weight loss journey, fitness journey, health journey, lifestyle change,
All that stuff.
all the fun stuff.
I was
New
gonna
year,
say 2020, new year, new me.
there we go.
Yeah.
With that, we are going to close out with our social media shout out of the week. It goes to at BrookeWest_RD. She is actually an RD for a place called SoFleet, which is all about like combat arts. So it seems like a really cool place. Like
That's
they,
some legit shit right there.
yeah, I was checking it out. It looked super interesting.
So with that being said, congratulations to all of our giveaway winners. December has come to a close. With that being said, the new year is coming around the corner and we will catch you guys next year.
Catch you in 2020.
Bye guys.
Bye. Thanks for listening to the Keeping It Juicy podcast.
Your main squeeze in nutrition.
Don't forget to subscribe so you can join us every Tuesday for a brand new episode.
Also, you can find us on Instagram and Facebook at Keeping It Juicy Podcast.
We'd love to hear from you, so please leave us a review
5 stars, no less.
on whatever platform you're listening to, or send us an email at keepingitjuicypodcast@gmail.com.
Or if you have any topics you'd like for us to touch upon, shoot us an email. Until next time, don't do anything that I wouldn't do. So with that being said, what can you do instead of looking at the scale? So what the hell? Why did I just say that? I don't know. So sodium causes water retention. I mean, the water follows salt. That's just, if you don't know. What the hell? No one hits me up.
You're getting way too amped up.
Ugh. So
Cool it. Bring it down a notch.
I am trying.